Hello YouTube, Rob here. Today we're going to be doing a video on the restoration of a Savage Stevens 311A 12 gauge shotgun. So what this channel does is we go out, we buy old beat up guns or guns that have been sporterized, and we refurbish them as close as we can to the original. So we had picked this gun up for about $180 at Cabela's. It's used. The wood is extremely beat. The metal needs to be re-blued. Other than that, it's just missing a front sight and it just needs a little bit of T&A. So we're gonna see what we can do with it, do a quick function test, and get on to the actual woodworking and working on the steel. So let's go over it. A little background on this firearm. This was manufactured by the Savage Arms Corporation out of Westfield, Massachusetts. This particular gun is dated as a C model, which means that it was manufactured in 1951. The manufacturing for the 311A started in 1949 with the A designation, then the B designation being 1950, the C being 1951, so on and so forth. We can see that by opening up the receiver, pop the handguard off, barrels will come off. That C inside of the circle tells us that's a 1951 manufacture. Features a blued steel barrel, color case hardened receiver, and American black walnut furniture. So, to go over the firearm, the wood is extremely beat. We're going to refinish all of that. We're going to polish up the receiver. The handguard needs to be redone as well, and the spring needs more tension, so we're going to try and find a spring for it. The steel is alright. We're going to polish it up and try and re-blue it, but other than that, it's still in quite workable order. And it is missing a front sight bead, which we have already ordered a brass front sight from numrich.com. Excellent quality products. So let's go do a quick function test outside and then get to it. Okay, so for this functionality test, we're just going to be using regular 2 3/4 inch Remington game loads. The shotgun is only chambered in 2 3/4 inch chambering, but it has fixed chokes. This one being a modified choke and this one being a full choke. So let's get to it. The gun does not have ejectors, but it does have extractors. It will pop the shells out of the barrels, but you do have to actually pull them out manually. Other than that, the shotgun is pretty pleasant to shoot. The recoil isn't too bad. It's actually quite hefty, so it helps a lot with the 12 gauge. Alright, the firearm functions fine. So we'll get into reworking the wood and see where it takes us from there. So I'll check in when we get down to the workstation. Alright, so we're down in the workstation. We have a majority of the handguard is all taken apart. We're going to start with that. I need to go find a tool. We have all the screws done for this, but there is one last screw inside of there that actually connects the stock to the receiver. You can't remove that unless you take that screw out. So I'm going to get that done later, but we'll get started on the handguard. So to refinish the wood and strip the actual varnish off of it, the first thing you're going to use is 60 grit sandpaper, which is what we have right here. So it's pretty rough. It'll allow you to really, tear off some of the actual old varnish, and then after that you smooth it out with some 220 grit sandpaper. Important thing that you need to know about these, the old varnishes they used to use, especially this is a 1951, are lead based, and they do have lead particles that will come out when you are dusting them down. A lot of people say to use like the you see like the painting masks and stuff, the cloth ones that go over your face. I used one of those, but I still had stuff go into my eyes and cause irritation, so as dumb as it sounds, but I actually use a military gas mask. So this filter is rated to take like chemical and biological agents like for war. And this will keep your face completely secure, so it's not going to allow any lead particles into your eyes or mouth. So, yeah, we'll get to work on the handguard, sanding that down, and we'll check back in when we can get the stock screw up.
Okay, so we were able to get a majority of the old stain off pretty easy with that 60 grit sandpaper. You can see it's got some pretty nice wood grain to it. I think it's really going to pop when we restain it. But you can see that it's very, very rough from the 60 grit. So we're going to use that 220 grit and we're going to soften it up a little bit and get it prepped for restaining. One thing to keep in mind as well, you can actually see all of these particles. All of that wood dust, that's all going to have lead in it. Make sure that you really clean up your work area afterwards, especially if you have dogs, kids, anything. It's really going to be bad stuff. So, definitely make sure that you have the proper tools and the proper care to take care of all of these particles, otherwise you're going to have a real mess on your hands.
Okay, so we just finished the handguard up with some 220 grit sandpaper. So it's nice and smooth, ready for restaining. I didn't really do the back end of it. Let's see if I can get a flashlight. So I didn't really do the back end of it, primarily because that's going to be covered up by the receiver. But other than that, the rest of it is nice and smooth, and it's ready to go. An update on the stock, we were able to get that screw out once I found the right tool. So the stock is ready to be sanded down, so I'll get to work on that and we'll update you when I get to it. Making some good progress on the stock, really getting some of that stain down with the 60 grit sandpaper. So some parts are kind of hard. It's undercut here for your thumb to rest in, and right under here. Other than that, it's coming off pretty easy, so yeah, we'll keep sanding and then I'll let you know when we're done with the 60 grit, hit it with the 220 grit. Okay, so got all of that done off of the stock with the 60 grit. Still very rough. It's actually kind of cool, there's a real nice dark spot in that wood. But we're going to hit it with some 220 grit and soften it up. Alright guys, just finished up with the 220, so both the handguard and the stock are ready to be put through wood conditioner and restained. But yeah, there's that little dark spot right there in the stock. I think we have one on the handguard as well, yeah, right on there. But it's pretty cool to see all this old wood. This wood's from, I mean, the gun was manufactured in 1951, so the wood was probably cut that year, maybe a year before. But yeah, well, cool piece of history. So we'll get that tied up, get some wood conditioner on it, and get to work on the actual internals, taking them apart, re-greasing them, the whole 9 yards. So. Alrighty, now that we're done with the stock, I get started on the internals. So, as you can see, the whole trigger group and firing group package right there is a little crusty, a little dirty, but be able to clean that up a little bit with some rem oil wipes. Maybe get in there and polish some trigger surfaces, see if we can get a crisper break. Other than that, the color case hardening looks good. Probably just need to get some carbon off of it, and she'll be all set to go. And the barrel's also pretty okay. Not the best condition, but we'll be able to get down any surface rust it has on it and re-blue it. So check in when we clean up the internals. Hopefully these things will be spotless next time we check in. Alright, so we just went in and cleaned up all of these contacts, all the spring. We actually just took out this entire firing pin spring assembly, and absolutely caked with junk. But we cleaned it up, and after a quick little polish, you can really see how beautiful these color case hardened receivers can be. I mean, that is just, look at that. Isn't that nice? So that's going to contrast really, really well with the blued barrels. We just didn't re-blue them, we just polished them up a little bit. Got some of the surface rust off. Also polished up the actual chambers as well. Did some work on those. So we're gonna, it's getting pretty late tonight, so we're gonna call it a night right now. Wake up in the morning, put the conditioner on the wood, and get to staining. So stay tuned. Alright guys, so we're going to get the wood conditioner ready to put on the wood. There's not much you really need to do to prepare the wood conditioner. Just stir it up a little bit. Use some nitrile gloves to make sure none of your hand oils or your body oils actually get into the conditioner, because that will ruin the finished product. We're just going to take a small dab of it inside the cheesecloth, and we're just going to lightly go over the wood. A nice even coating is all you want. You don't really want to dab it on. You don't want to drown this thing in conditioner. You can see what the conditioner does. It really kind of moisturizes the wood, makes sure the wood grain really pops, and it keeps the wood kind of nice and even coating. Sometimes in the original process of dyeing from the factory, some pieces of the wood will be dyed more than others, and if you try and refinish it, then it'll look blotchy. This will get rid of that and really even it out. So now that we have the handguard conditioned, we're going to move over to the stock. You notice I actually have these things, they're hanging, they're not laying down on anything. And that's simply for the fact that if it's laying down on anything, whatever you just put down on the wood is probably going to be coming out very awful. That's because it's laying on something, so it's going to look flat. If you hang it up, it'll have time to air dry, so everything's going to dry evenly, and it's going to look like a much better product after. But we're going to put on 2 coats of this. We're going to let the first coat dry for about 15 minutes to 20 minutes. Put on the second coat, let that dry for 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll be set to put the stain on. So I'll cut to 15 minutes from now, and we'll put the second coat on. Alright guys, so we put on the second coat of conditioner. We let that dry. Now we're going to move on to putting on the coat of the actual stain. Like I said earlier, this is the Minwax Sedona Red 222. So it gives a really nice red color. So what we're going to do, stir that up a little bit. Just take, it's very strong stuff. Wood stain is extremely strong. You really don't need much. So do a nice even coating across the entire wood. You don't really want to dab it on, you really want to be able to see that wood grain underneath. And you can see how strong this stuff is just by me putting it on. But this we're going to let dry for about 15 minutes to 20 minutes, just like the conditioner. But after we let 15 minutes pass, we're going to come in and wipe the excess off before we add more. That's to prevent any globbing or dripping or anything like that. Make sure that it stays even. So that's looking pretty decent. Just give it a good look over. Yep. Yep, that's pretty good. And we'll move over to the handguard. Like you said, you really don't need much. I'm barely dabbing any into the cloth, and I'm mostly just taking a lot of it off, dripping it back into the actual stain bottle. So we're gonna put this on nice and even. Let it sit for 15 to 20 minutes. Take off any excess that may be on it, and then we'll redo it. Alrighty. Got that first coat of stain on. We'll let that dry. Alright, so we wiped off all the excess off of the stock and the handguard. You see, it just came out really decent. Really nice wood grain to them. I especially like the bottom portion of the stock. You can really see that grain pop. But what we're going to do now is let that stain dry, just cure for one whole day. And then we'll come back tomorrow and we'll start putting on the actual protective coating for the shellac. But you want to let that stain dry for as long as you can. I recommend 1 day, but the longer you let it cure, the darker it's going to get. So we'll let that sit for a day and we'll get back to you. Okay guys, so next we're going to be putting the shellac onto the actual wood to make sure that it's sealed up tight. We stained it twice, wiped off all the excess, and waited a whole day for the stain to really set in. So now we're just going to stir the shellac up, because it does not need to be stirred quite well. We're going to apply 2 to 3 coats of shellac and let that sit for about 2 to 3 hours out in the sun, or if you have under a heat gun or whatever. And just like the dye, this stuff really absorbs into the cheesecloth, so you don't really need much, especially for your first coat. The shellac more so, you want a really even coating because this is the final finished product on it, so if there's any globs or anything like that, any drips, it's going to show up and it's going to look absolutely awful. So after you put the coating on, you're going to really want to go through and smooth it out, make sure there's really no excess. But in that, that's all it is to it. It's just wiping it on, just like the stain. So, needs to be a good coat on the stock. We'll move over to the handguard. Alrighty. Like I said, make sure to wipe off any excess you may have. And we're going to let this dry for about 10 to 15 minutes before we check on it again and determine whether or not it's dry enough or it needs a new coat. So, check back to you when we get to there. Okay, so I just got back from work. I'd put 4 coats of shellac on the wood. You see, that's kind of the finish we're going for. It's not mirror shined, but it's just a real nice, like, kind of gloss protective coating. So the stock and the handguard's really done. Like I said, that wood grain is really popping with that stain. Same with the handguard. That's gonna look really nice. So next up, we're gonna start rebluing the barrel, and we do that by stripping the barrel using some naval jelly rust dissolver, because that'll actually dissolve the rust and the bluing on the initial barrel. We'll scrape it down, hit it with some brake cleaner, which will degrease everything, and then we'll use some Birchwood Casey's Super Blue. And the reason why we need to liquid blue this is because with that double barrel, the 2 barrels are soldered together. With heat bluing, it'll wreck that solder, it'll blow the barrels out, so we need to cold blue it to make sure the soldering stays together. But I'll snag a few photos tomorrow morning of the wood in some sunlight, and we'll start the bluing process soon. Okay, so to start the re-bluing process, we're going to start out with some Loctite naval jelly. We're going to spread the pink naval jelly across the entire surface, scrubbing down. This jelly has phosphoric acid and sulfuric acid mixed in, which will help get rid of the bluing. After it's done and all nice and clean, we're going to hit it with some brake cleaner. This will degrease the entire thing. You want to make sure that this thing is squeaky clean with no residue whatsoever. If you don't, the bluing is going to come out extremely blotchy. So after we're done with the brake cleaner, we'll hit it with some super blue. So the super blue is going to be kind of a little tough to do, but it's an acid that will eventually just, it corrodes the barrel. What you're doing with bluing is you're controlled rusting. So by corroding the barrel, you're able to get this bluing effect. But we have to stop it in case it overblues, so we have some water there, and that will kind of level out the acid and make sure that it stops the bluing process. So we'll get started on it, and I'll show you how to put the naval jelly on. Alright, to start, you're going to want to shake up the naval jelly, and keep in mind you want to wear gloves. This is acid, it's a mild acid, it's very rough shit, okay, so you don't want that on your hands. Take one of these Brillo pads. I prefer Brillo pads. Some people use steel wool. I prefer Brillo pad. Get a little bit on there, and all you do is you just start going to town on the barrel, and it will start stripping the bluing eventually. You can already see some of it's coming off right there. That's the acid eating away at the bluing base. It's a slow process, but give it time, be patient, and the better product will come out. So, this is going to take a while, so I'm going to jump cut to when I have the barrel all de-blued. We're going to brake clean it and re-blue it with the super blue. Alright guys, so you can already see we're getting some really, really good results with the naval jelly. And guys, this really did not take long at all to strip most of it. There's still quite a bit to go, but from the time I actually put the first thing of naval jelly on to right now, it's been maybe 10 minutes. This stuff works really, really quick. So hopefully by the end of the night we'll have all the original bluing off, and we'll brake clean it, make sure it's all degreased, and in the morning we'll be able to start the cold bluing process. Hopefully I can finish that up before I have to go to work in the morning. But, so, yeah. Alrighty guys, so this is the, after we got all of the bluing off, or most of it, we got probably 99% of it off, degreased it twice. So now we're gonna try our luck with the Birchwood Casey Super Blue. Cold bluing liquid. So yeah, the idea is you're controlling the rusting process and you're corroding the metal, but that corrosion of the metal, that layer will protect it from further rust. A little weird, but it comes out with a really cool product, and hopefully we'll have some good luck. My buddy's had some pretty good luck with the Birchwood Casey stuff. So yeah, let's get to it. Okay, so we de-blued the whole barrel. I'm not touching it at all. And the reason why is because we've degreased the barrel. The barrel's prepped to be re-blued using the liquid blue. If I touch this barrel right now, I need to degrease the whole thing again because the oil's on my hands. Just your natural oils will ruin it. So that's the metal in the raw. We're going to use it. Put the bluing on. It's going to start corroding. You neutralize the acid with water. Okay? Water is middle of the road pH. It will completely neutralize everything. It'll stop the bluing process in its tracks. Now the way you cold blue is you don't do it all at once until it gets super dark and then you stop. You do light coats, just like we're doing with the stain. Light coats of bluing, stop it with the water. Light coats of bluing, stop it with the water until you get the color you want. So we'll get on that soon. I'm not sure if I have time to do it tonight, It's getting pretty late. Right now it's 12:15 in the morning. So just after midnight. I've been up since 5 a.m. yesterday morning. I'm a little tired, so I think I'm going to just call it a night right now. Maybe do this in the morning. We'll jump cut to that when we get to it. So, alright guys, so it's the next morning. I just started putting on all the cold bluing. I've done 2 coats so far, and we're getting some pretty good results. I actually didn't want to film the first 2 coats simply because if I screwed up, I didn't want to go back and edit it in or edit it out. But what you want to do is just take the cold bluing, go the entire length of the barrel with your wipes. You really don't want to rub it in. You just want to get even coating and let it set, kind of like our stain. But this is the first time I've ever done this, and it's coming out pretty decent. Definitely gonna try and redo it on something else in the future. This rib has been the hardest part to get, these little crevices. But yeah, it's getting there for sure. I think we're gonna have a pretty decent product for our $180 shotgun build by the end of this. So I'll check back in when we are done with the bluing process and the barrel's done. We'll Loctite the front sight in and get the final assembly together. Alright, bluing is all finished. We got pretty close to what the actual bluing was on the gun. I took the trigger guard and matched it. It's not going to be a complete mirror shine, but you know what? This is my first time I ever blued anything. Came out pretty consistent. So what we're going to do now is just dip the barrel in the water, neutralize any bluing acid that would be on it, wipe it down, clean it up. We'll put it on the receiver and do the final mounting of the front sight bead, Loctite that in, and our build will be done. So I'm pretty excited. This is definitely going to look way better than it was. It's not as bad as when I got it, so that's for damn sure. But I think the final product is going to look really good for something we only paid 180 bucks for. So, got all the acid neutralized out of that. I'll give it a good dunk on that end for good measure. Alright, so I'll get this dried up, get it downstairs, and we can do our final assembly. Hey guys, sorry, I thought I was recording, but I didn't hit record. I Loctited the front sight in, so you guys missed that, but don't worry, it was like 2 minutes, don't worry. But other than that, I got the final assembly almost all done. I got the handguard done. Wood's looking really nice, that wood grain. Got the stock fitted, and that came out amazing. So I'm really excited about that. I mean, just look at that. That wood grain with that color case hardening. That is awesome. Along with the fluid steel barrel and the brass front sight. It's going to be a really nice little coach gun. I think it's going to last quite a few years, something I could probably pass down to my kids if I ever have some one day. So, yeah, I'll jump cut to the gun when it's fully assembled, and we'll give it a little test shoot, and that'll be it. Alrighty, project is finished. Final assembly is done. Just going to do a quick little pan over real quick. Look at that brass bead. Oh, that's beautiful. So that's it, guys. A 1951 Stevens 311A double barrel shotgun. A brand new reblued barrel, new brass bead front sight, redone wood grips, trigger group all polished, and look at that color case hardening. Absolutely beautiful. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Like and comment, let me know what you want to see next, and I'll see you in the next one.